I was supposed to die that day. The doctors had given me 3 months, but I knew my time was running out faster than their predictions. Then he walked in, confused, lost, holding a bouquet meant for someone else. Little did we know that his wrong turn would change both our lives forever. If this story of unexpected love and second chances touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more incredible true stories that remind us how life's greatest miracles often begin with a simple mistake. The antiseptic smell of the hospital corridor made David's nose wrinkle as he balanced a bouquet of yellow daisies in one arm and gripped his 5-year-old daughter Emma's hand with the other. The flowers were for his sister, recovering from appendix surgery in room 302. At least, that's where he thought she was. "Daddy, are we lost?" Emma asked, her small voice echoing in the sterile hallway. "No, sweetheart. It's just down here," David replied with the false confidence of someone definitely lost but unwilling to admit it. The hospital's maze-like corridors all looked identical: white walls, blue floor tiles, and numbered doors that seemed to follow no logical sequence. After 15 minutes of wandering, David spotted room 302 and sighed with relief. "Here we are," he said, pushing the door open without knocking, a mistake he would later call the best of his life. The woman in the bed wasn't his sister. She was thin, too thin, with hollow cheeks and dark circles under her eyes. But those eyes, a startling shade of green, widened with surprise when David and Emma entered. "You're not my doctor," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. David froze, embarrassment washing over him. "I'm so sorry. Wrong room." He was about to retreat when Emma broke free from his grip and approached the bed. "Are you sick?" she asked, with the blunt curiosity only children possess. The woman's pale face softened. "Yes, I am. Very sick. My mommy was sick too. She went to heaven," Emma said matter-of-factly. David winced. His wife's death from breast cancer 2 years ago was still a raw wound, especially when Emma mentioned it so casually to strangers. "I'm sorry about your confusion," the woman said, addressing David. "And about your wife. I'm the one who should apologize for barging in," David replied, stepping forward to collect Emma. "I'm David, and this is my daughter Emma. We're looking for my sister in room 302. This is 302 East Wing. Your sister is probably in 302 West Wing," she explained with a small smile. "I'm Sophia." Emma pointed to the empty vase on Sophia's bedside table. "You don't have any flowers." David noticed the bareness of the room then: no cards, no flowers, no personal items except a worn paperback novel and a small photo frame facing away from them. "Would you like our flowers?" Emma asked, looking up at her father for permission. Before David could respond, a nurse entered the room. "Ms. Reynolds, it's time for your..." She stopped, noticing David and Emma. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had visitors." "They're lost," Sophia explained, a hint of amusement in her tired voice. The nurse directed David to the correct wing, but as he turned to leave, Emma placed the bouquet of daisies on Sophia's bed. "Yellow is a happy color," she declared. "You should have happy colors when you're sick." Sophia's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Thank you, Emma." As David led Emma away, he glanced back at Sophia. Something about her solitude in that sterile room tugged at him. He knew that loneliness, had lived it himself after losing his wife. "Will we visit the flower lady again?" Emma asked as they finally found his sister's room. David hadn't planned to, but he heard himself saying, "Maybe we will." 3 days later, David found himself standing outside room 302 East Wing again, this time intentionally. Emma clutched a handmade card decorated with glitter and stickers. He knocked this time. "Come in," called a weak voice. Sophia looked worse than before, if that was possible. The daisies had wilted, much like she seemed to be doing. "You came back," she said, surprise evident in her voice. "Emma wanted to give you this," David explained, as his daughter proudly presented her artwork. Sophia accepted the card with trembling hands. "This is beautiful. Thank you. Are you going to heaven like my mommy?" Emma asked, climbing onto a chair beside the bed. David started to admonish her, but Sophia shook her head slightly. "I might be," she answered honestly. "The doctors say I have cancer that spread too far." "How long?" David asked quietly while Emma examined the hospital bed controls with fascination. "Originally 3 months. That was 2 months ago." Sophia's matter-of-fact tone couldn't hide the fear in her eyes. "But things have progressed faster than expected." David sat down heavily in the visitor's chair. "I'm sorry. Is there family we could call for you?" Sophia shook her head. "My parents died years ago. No siblings. My fiancé left when I was diagnosed." She attempted a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Not everyone can handle the in-sickness part of those vows. The bitterness in her voice was subtle but unmistakable. David recognized it. He'd felt it himself when friends had disappeared after his wife's funeral, unable to face his grief or single parenthood. People can be disappointing, he agreed. "Not all people," Sophia said, looking at Emma, who was now showing her how to make a paper crane with a napkin. "Some are unexpected blessings." They talked for an hour, about books. They both loved mysteries, music. She preferred classical, he was more of a rock fan, and life before illness had defined their existences. David learned that Sophia had been an elementary school art teacher before her diagnosis, that she loved thunderstorms and hated olives, and that she had a dry wit that occasionally broke through her exhaustion. When it was time to leave, Emma hugged Sophia carefully, mindful of the 4 lines. "We'll come back tomorrow," David promised, surprising himself again. Sophia's smile was genuine this time. "I'd like that." Their visits became daily. David would bring Emma after school, and they'd spend an hour or 2 with Sophia. Sometimes they'd watch movies on David's laptop, other times they'd play board games modified to accommodate Sophia's weakening condition. On days when Sophia was too tired to engage, David would read aloud while Emma colored quietly. The hospital staff began to recognize them, offering sympathetic smiles as they passed. One nurse pulled David aside after a particularly difficult day when Sophia had been in too much pain for visitors. "It's remarkable what you're doing," she said. "Most terminal patients don't have anyone who stays." "We're just friends," David explained awkwardly. The nurse gave him a knowing look. "Whatever you are, you're making her final days meaningful. That's a gift." David hadn't thought of it that way. He'd been visiting Sophia because, well, he wasn't entirely sure why. Perhaps because Emma had grown attached to her. Perhaps because he recognized the loneliness in her eyes. Or perhaps because in their conversations, brief as they were between her bouts of pain and fatigue, he discovered a kindred spirit. One evening, after Emma had fallen asleep in the chair, Sophia motioned David closer. "Why do you keep coming back?" she whispered, her voice raspy from medication. David considered deflecting but opted for honesty. "At first, it was for Emma. She lost her mother so young, and somehow connecting with you helped her process that grief. And now? Now it's for me too," he admitted. "I look forward to seeing you. To our conversations. To just being here." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "That's cruel, you know. Making me care about you both when I'm leaving." "I'm sorry," David said, taking her fragile hand in his. "Would you prefer we stop coming?" "No," she whispered fiercely. "That would be worse." They sat in silence, hands intertwined, until a nurse came to administer Sophia's evening medication. 2 weeks later, Sophia was moved to hospice care. The hospital room that had become familiar territory was exchanged for a more home-like setting, with softer lighting and comfortable furniture. The change signaled what they all knew but hadn't voiced: the end was approaching rapidly. David arranged his work schedule to spend afternoons at the hospice center. Emma would join him after school, bringing new artwork daily to decorate Sophia's room. The bare walls that had greeted them in the hospital were now covered with colorful drawings, sunshine, flowers, and stick figures holding hands. "That's you, that's Daddy, and that's me," Emma explained, pointing to her latest creation. Sophia smiled weakly. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Later, when Emma was engrossed in a book in the corner, Sophia beckoned David closer. "I need to ask you something important," she whispered. David leaned in, noticing how her cheekbones seemed more prominent than they had been just days ago. "After I'm gone," she began, her voice faltering, "will you tell Emma about me sometimes? I don't want her to forget." The request broke something in David. The careful emotional distance he'd been maintaining crumbled. "She won't forget you," he promised, his voice thick. "Neither will I." Sophia's eyes searched his face. "I wish we'd had more time." "So do I," David admitted, finally acknowledging what had been growing between them, a connection that defied their circumstances, a love that had no future but existed nonetheless. That night, after tucking Emma into bed, David sat alone in his kitchen, a glass of untouched whiskey before him. The unfairness of it all crashed over him in waves. To find someone who understood him, who connected with his daughter, who made him feel alive again after years of merely existing, only to lose her too. He called his sister, needing to voice the thoughts circling in his mind. "I think I'm in love with her," he confessed. "Oh, David," his sister sighed. "Only you would find a way to make this situation even more heartbreaking." "What do I do?" "You tell her," his sister said simply. "Before it's too late." The next day, David arrived at the hospice center with a small velvet box in his pocket and uncertainty in his heart. What he was planning was either the most romantic gesture or the most insane idea he'd ever had. Sophia was having a relatively good day. She was sitting up, her hair brushed and arranged around her thin face, wearing a soft blue sweater instead of a hospital gown. "You look beautiful," David said, meaning it despite the visible ravages of her disease. "Liar," she replied with a small smile. "But thank you for saying it anyway." They talked about ordinary things, a book he was reading, a bird that had built a nest outside her window, Emma's upcoming school play. The normalcy was a precious illusion they both clung to. When there was a natural lull in the conversation, David took a deep breath. "Sophia, I need to tell you something." She looked at him expectantly, her green eyes still bright despite everything. "These past weeks have been unexpected. When I walked into your hospital room by mistake, I had no idea that I was actually exactly where I needed to be." He paused, gathering courage. "I know this makes no sense. I know our timing is impossible. But I've fallen in love with you." Sophia's eyes widened, tears immediately spilling onto her hollow cheeks. "David. Please, let me finish," he said gently. "I'm not telling you this to burden you or to make this harder. I'm telling you because it's true, and because I don't want to have regrets about things left unsaid." He pulled the velvet box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a simple silver ring. "This isn't about a future we can't have. It's about honoring what we do have, right now. I want to marry you, Sophia. Today, tomorrow, whenever you want. Not because you're dying, but because knowing you has made me feel alive again." Sophia stared at the ring, then at David, disbelief written across her features. "You're serious," she whispered. "Completely. But why? I have nothing to offer you. No future, no." "You've already given me more than you know," David interrupted. "You've helped Emma heal. You've helped me remember what it feels like to connect with someone. To care. To love." Sophia closed her eyes, tears streaming steadily now. "This is crazy," she murmured. "Probably," David agreed. "Is that a no?" Her eyes opened, a spark of her former spirit visible through the pain and medication. "It's a yes," she said. "But only if Emma approves." Emma not only approved but was ecstatic at the idea of a wedding. The hospice staff, moved by the unusual request, helped arrange a small ceremony in the garden area 3 days later. Sophia's doctor adjusted her medication schedule to ensure she would be as comfortable and alert as possible for the event. David's sister helped Emma pick out a dress and brought flowers. The hospice chaplain agreed to officiate. A nurse who played guitar volunteered to provide music. On the morning of the wedding, David arrived early to find Sophia being helped into a simple white dress by 2 nurses. Her hair had been arranged with small flowers, and someone had applied light makeup that brought a hint of color to her pale face. "You shouldn't see the bride before the wedding," she teased weakly when she noticed him in the doorway. "I think we can break a few traditions," he replied, his throat tight with emotion. The ceremony was brief but profound. Emma stood proudly beside them, holding a small bouquet matching Sophia's. The hospice staff gathered around, many wiping away tears as David and Sophia exchanged vows, promises not of forever, but of now, of love without conditions or expectations. "I, David, take you, Sophia, to be my wife for whatever time we have. I promise to cherish every moment, to find joy in each day, and to love you completely." Sophia's voice was barely audible as she repeated similar words, her strength clearly fading even through her determination. When the chaplain pronounced them husband and wife, David kissed her gently, aware of her fragility but also of the strength it had taken for her to stand there with him. The small gathering moved inside for cake and sparkling cider. Sophia managed a few bites and smiled as Emma danced around the room, declaring it the best wedding ever. After an hour, though, it was clear Sophia needed to rest. As the guests departed, David helped her back to bed, carefully removing the flowers from her hair. "Thank you," she whispered as he tucked the blanket around her. "For what?" "For giving me this. A family. Love. Even if it's just for a little while." David kissed her forehead. "Rest now, Mrs. Mitchell." She smiled at the name before drifting into sleep. Sophia lived for 23 days as David's wife. Some days were better than others. On good days, they would sit in the hospice garden, Sophia in a wheelchair with blankets tucked around her, listening to Emma's stories about school or watching birds flit between trees. On bad days, David would simply hold her hand while she slept, reading aloud occasionally when she stirred. The hospice staff bent rules to allow David to stay overnight. He slept in a recliner beside her bed, waking at the slightest sound to adjust her pillows or offer sips of water. One evening, as sunset painted the room in golden hues, Sophia asked to see the photo album David had compiled, pictures of their wedding, of Emma's artwork, of the 3 of them together during those precious weeks. "I want you to add something," she said, her voice now permanently reduced to a whisper. She handed him an envelope that had been hidden beneath her pillow. "Don't open it until after," she instructed. "Promise me." "I promise," David said, tucking the envelope into his pocket. That night, Sophia's breathing became more labored. The hospice nurse increased her pain medication, warning David that the end was likely approaching. He called his sister to bring Emma, knowing Sophia would want to say goodbye. Emma climbed carefully onto the bed beside Sophia, instinctively understanding the gravity of the moment despite her young age. "Are you going to heaven now?" she asked. Sophia nodded slightly. "Soon, sweetheart. Will you look for my mommy? Her name is Claire. She has hair like mine." "I will," Sophia promised, her voice barely audible. "And I'll tell her what a wonderful job your daddy is doing, and what an amazing girl you are." Emma leaned forward to kiss Sophia's cheek. "I love you, Sophia Mom." The new name, one Emma had created herself, brought fresh tears to Sophia's eyes. "I love you too, Emma."